You all could please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for attending this June meeting for the Board of Trustees. We have a couple of public comments here. Evelyn Conrad, I believe you're first.
Do they pertain to the...
Good evening, Mayor Mike, members of the Board of Trustees. I most of all want to thank you for having exercised your oversight responsibility and helped us in the Roscoe area. I've also thanked Chris Talbot. The illegal stockade fence is down. We thoroughly appreciate it. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that the 7-foot hedges are still up between Adams, same property, Adams and Roscoe Drive, and between Roscoe Drive and South Roscoe Drive. So the problem is not entirely cured. But this, I hope you'll let me, segues into the fence law, which is also in violation of Section 116.16, the corner clearance, where there is supposed to be nothing higher than 30 inches and for about 20 feet from each intersection. Is it all right for me to discuss the fence law at the moment?
Well, we have it on the public hearing. So
We have the deer fence.
Yeah, that's
Public hearing, so if it's in relationship
This is
to
my
that.
evening news. It's when I talk back to the television. I can't say it.
So you
2
have
minutes.
So you have 3 minutes.
Stay with your procedures. Thank you for the stockade fence.
Okay.
So we're batting 500 is what you're saying so far. I can live with that.
And Altair Merrick, I think it's about the fence law also? Yeah. Okay, so you might as well wait. Okay. Any other comments from the public? Okay. No further comments. We move ahead to announce the election results, which, we had the U.S. Open going. It was the beginning of June, and it was a really hectic time, and yet I think that there were some great milestones made in not only in the write-ins, but also the candidates, and I congratulate Kimberly Allen and Rich Ustremski for their dedication to the village of Southampton and for running again. It's never an easy thing to do, although some may think it is. Even getting the signatures to get on the ballot is quite a task. And so with that, I'll let you read off the results.
Okay. So the election results from the June 15th Southampton Village election. Judge Barbara Wilson with 162 votes. Trustee Kimberly Allen, 144 votes. Trustee Richard Ustremski, 85 votes. And write-ins, Jesse Warren with 31 write-in votes.
Thank you. I think they all deserve a round of applause. There's no board presentations tonight, and we move quickly ahead. You might make the news to
That's on the discussion. That's what I was told.
to the public hearings on the deer fence. So I would make a motion to open the public hearing on the deer fence law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments from the trustees? Counselor?
The board opened the hearing at the last meeting. For the record, you did receive a letter from the Suffolk County Planning Department indicating it was a matter of local determination. You also received correspondence from your Village Planning Commission, at least the chairman, dated June 24th. The sum and substance, he had some preliminary comments, but most importantly, he indicated will be discussed at their next meeting, which I believe is July 5th. So my recommendation, after you hear the public comments, would be to keep the hearing open until you at least receive those comments. I did supply you with a copy of the law with two changes, one with a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet, and also a provision that speaks to deer fences on agricultural production, and that was just distributed, and I think there's copies here of the members of the public. But understanding that this is still under discussion or otherwise, but this would be two suggestions that came out of the comments that we heard last meeting.
All of which were good. Any trustees with any comments? Public?
To the public? There you
Would you like,
There you go.
Evelyn, your chance?
See, you can catch your news.
Trying to get you back to the news.
Well, first of all, we elect our government to take care of those things that the individual cannot, which means the health of the community and the environment. This affects both, and it's ineffectual. First of all, it's already in violation of the 11616 corner law, because you can't have anything higher than 30 inches on the corners. And if you erected an 8-foot fence, you would suddenly have traffic problems like even worse than we have them now. The other thing is it's in violation of the hedges law. It seems to me that this is a national problem. Of course, our federal government is busy chasing around young refugee children to keep them out of sight, so let's stick with the state. I would like to see our village get together with the town, with the county, and propose some form of relief from the state. This is not a problem that can be solved, certainly not by the individual property owner. It would be quite expensive, not the $500 that you want to have for making the application, but 8-foot hedges take a lot more care than 6-foot hedges, which is the current limit. Some people don't have privet hedges, so you're really imposing a great deal of expense on the individual, beyond which it's not helpful. Rabbits carry the same and many additional infectious diseases. What used to be a problem only in shrubbery is now true in the grass, too. In Long Island, we have one of the best hospitals and experts in infectious diseases. This should be done with consultation with them, with traffic authorities. I think this is a major problem. It's not going to be fixed by suddenly deciding on putting a fence, which can't go around the entire property because some of them are on corners and you're supposed to keep those clear. And believe me, having lived with that stockade fence for an awfully long time, I know what a big hedge can do. We still have the hedge, we don't have the stockade fence. Those are my main points, but I do think the main thrust should be for the village to be the spearhead of talking to the town, the county, and the state government. It's a big problem all over the country. And there are a lot of diseases that are caused by not just the deer, but the rabbits. Thank you. Back to the news.
And I believe, Mr. Merrick, you had a comment?
Thank you. My name's Alistair Merrick. I live at 94 Bishop's Lane on the western edge of the village, and we've had a home there since 2002, and we've had deer problems since 2002. So I appear before you today to encourage you to continue to work to create a deer fence law so that we won't have to continue to have our yards spoiled and our plants eaten by deer. We've tried everything we can within the law, fertilizer, spraying, etc., and they just walk up our driveway and eat our plants and things like that and destroy the yard. So I would encourage you, I read about this in the Southampton Press last week that you were working on a proposal, and I would encourage you to continue to work on it and see if the 8-foot fences can in fact help us with the problem. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any others? Yes.
Good evening, board members. My name is Katerina Grinko of 2 Latham, 51 Hill Street, Southampton. Here on behalf of Whitefield Condominium, I appeared before this board during last hearing expressing the property owner's support for the local law, and just wanted to emphasize to this board that the property owners still feel strongly that the community, the village community, will benefit from the 8-foot fencing, and they also strongly believe that it will offer the protection, better protection than 6-foot fence offers. So they encourage you to consider this proposed local law seriously and pass it. And in addition, we also wanted to address one preliminary comment offered by the Village Planning Commission office with respect to aesthetics. The Whitefield condominium owners believe that the requirement to plant the hedges along the fencing will really address the aesthetic issue. And with that, we just want to again reiterate our support for the proposed local law. And I have another email to read into the record from one of the property owners, if you would allow me to do so. Dear Mayor Irving and Board of Trustees, we live in Whitefield, number 14 at 155 Hill Street, and are writing in support of the local law to allow an 8-foot deer fence. The deer pose a danger to people, pets, and costly landscaping. We currently have a 6-foot deer fence around the property, and it is simply not sufficient to keep out the deer. We have seen deer jump the 6-foot fence, and additionally, we have almost hit a deer running on our property as we drove out our unit. Furthermore, we have both suffered from Lyme's disease and are concerned about its spread through the deer population. Finally, the deer are decimating the landscaping on this historic property. Please pass the law to allow this 8-foot deer fence. Sincerely, Elaine Elliott Moskwa and Alexander Moskwa. That's all. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Is that being submitted to the record?
Did you want to give that? You can give it.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to take that? Go.
Any other comments concerning the deer fence? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Eric Winkler, 37 John Street in Southampton. I spoke at the last meeting as well, and I was actually planning to speak tonight, but I just want to share with you that I did get quite a few comments from people who read the Southampton Press about the meeting, and also the fact that I spoke there generally in support of the fence, more importantly, supporting that something is done. This is not the best solution, but for years now there's been, we should do something, nothing is being done. The situation is getting out of hand, and it's a multifaceted approach or issue, and I really encourage you, whether it's you or in collaboration with the state or whoever, the county, to do something. Deer are not an endangered species, and the situation is getting worse and worse. And there's arguments pro and against. I appreciate your concern about traffic issues by fences. Deer are a traffic issue. So we keep on just moving things around. And if I look at the revised draft, which I just see here, all you've done is make it worse. You're proposing to only allow 8-foot fences on properties that are half an acre. Most properties in the village, in the core of the village, are less than half an acre. So basically what you will achieve with this proposal is to have more deer in the center of the village, which is absolutely an unintended consequence, most likely. I would suggest, to address this more broadly, is that perhaps you apply for CPF funding to really not just continue to study this issue. We know what needs to be done. The population needs to be reduced, and either we have to put a moratorium on building new large properties in the backcountry, but we also need to get a handle of how many deer there are, how much the population is growing, and I believe it is growing because until 5 years ago, there was no deer in the core of the village, and now we have them there on a daily basis. So I really, this is not a perfect solution, but I really encourage you to take up this issue and maybe have separate discussions, again, with input from the community to really change the course of this dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. And, the real thing is your input, all of your input, because your input has already seen changes and modification from people. So if we're going to get a effective law, what you say and what the public says is very important. So I thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Valerie Hart. I didn't sign.
No, come up here, Valerie. It's okay.
I have to agree that's an issue. It's a continuing issue. And I agree with the gentleman who just spoke and with you, that you really have to do something a little bit stronger than a deer fence. And that probably is meeting with the town and seeing what they can do. Because the deer didn't start here. They started up in the fields. They were here a long time ago, but not recently. So I think it needs to really be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any comments from the trustees?
Not right now, no.
I do have a few comments.
Good.
I feel like this has been going on for such a long time, and all we do is kick the can down the road. And I really feel like we've talked about getting together with the town. We've actually talked with the town. The town doesn't do anything. We don't do anything. We met with people to thin the herds. We talked about having them come out with bows and arrows and thin the herds. We met with all sorts of different people on how we were going to do this. Several years ago, we talked about getting people to sign off because you needed 5 acres to actually have a shoot. None of it was done. Now it's so totally, I personally think it's out of control. I mean, in my neighborhood alone, I have a big field behind my house, and it's like a petting zoo out there. And they're huge. I mean, the does are huge. They're like the size of my car, it seems like. That's how much they've grown. And I think, I'm not saying this because of me, I'm saying I'm seeing them all over the village. We never had that before. So I think we have to really, as a board, get serious about this and have some sort of plan to thin the herd. And I think the 8-foot fence is only part of it, but I think thinning the herd, and I know you're concerned about other wildlife, and I find that, you're concerned about rabbits, and you're concerned about fox, and you're concerned about possum, and you're concerned about all the other wildlife that's out there. And I feel like they'll find their way, and I think that we have to figure out something to do with the deer. The deer is totally out of control.
Nancy, you're 100% right. It's not just the fence. It's a two-pronged approach, and it's culling the herds and the fence.
Well, I would have liked to have started the other prong a long time ago,
Yep.
and we didn't.
But
We
we
haven't
never
done
did.
it. I know. So now we're, years ago I can remember people coming to us and saying, I'd really like a fence. Could I put up a fence? They're eating everything. They're all over my property. And we wouldn't allow it.
Yep.
And now it's almost like there's more of them, and now we're talking about the fence, when we should have been really all along talking about thinning of the herd.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go back to thinning of the herd and the fence. And I think if they're going to put up fences, they have to be somehow camouflaged with some sort of foliage.
But, there's difficulties in controlling populations and culling herds because you also have involvement with the DEC and you have involvement with the Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, but the people that we had here who were going to come in and thin the herd with the bows and arrows, they worked that all out with the DEC. So,
Right,
I mean,
but then they have Fish and Wildlife.
well,
Yeah, the DEC is just the beginning. But no.
so the deer have more rights than the rest of us, so,
They have an awful lot of rights, yeah.
you know.
But it can be done, and you can cull herds. One of the big advantages is today's, we talk about bows and arrows, where the bows today and the arrows are not what we used to see as growing up as kids, They're pretty lethal weapons, and in New York State, with special exception, you can use crossbows, which are really even a better, more accurate way to cull a herd. And, I've always been a proponent that if you put the individual up in a high position so that he's shooting down, there isn't the danger factor that we can all fear of an errant arrow flying by us. But, so we need to look at both approaches.
And again, as a reminder, our Planning Commission is meeting and discussing this very topic in this room on July 5th at 5 p.m. And to Nancy's point, I think there's a lot of issues. A couple people that have approached me have outlined three. One being for all those who can afford to put up a fence and a hedge, are they going to redirect the deer to all those who cannot? Two, are we going to redirect the deer to our streets? People have never seen as many deer as they see now. Everybody has a petting zoo in their backyard. I've got a mother and a doe and two fawns in my tiny little yard. But a mother did tell me she's very concerned about the volume of deer. Her daughter works very late. She comes home at night, and she's basically dodging deer all the way home, just within village perimeter. And then the last comment I have received is that we seem to be hedging up the village, and is that what we want? But I agree. I think we're at I wasn't involved in all these previous discussions, but I think it's become a hazard to anybody driving, particularly at night. So I'm not, I have no personal objection to a deer fence that's obscured by hedges, but I just wonder, is that really solving the root cause is all?
And the other issue with the fence, and, I like the idea of enclosing the fence and hedge, but it's incredibly expensive, not so much the fence, but every year that hedge has to be trimmed, and at least twice a year, and that's a tremendous cost. So we're charging $500 for the permit, then they have to go and have the fence put up, then they have to camouflage the fence. Most people, local people aren't going to do that. They can't afford it. And then every year they have to either trim it, which costs a fortune, or they have to do it themselves, which some people will do, some people can't. They won't do it. So we have those concerns too, but I think we're doing all of this because we have a herd of deer within our village and town that's totally out of control, and that's what we have to get to the bottom of.
Let me say a couple things. This gentleman pointed out, you added wording that's only for half acre and above?
That was a discussion item. It was one thought.
Was that?
Because that was a concern related to hedging and fencing on smaller lots and having to put gates. So that was the discussion that came out of the discussion.
So that's obviously open for interpretation, because I agree with that point the gentleman made. And again, we've all heard the same things. Are we displacing or are we solving? And the discussions in the past, unfortunately, were, and I know some municipalities east of us did implement controlled hunting with the gentleman that came in. At the time, our board just didn't agree to go that route. I wasn't one of them, but at the time we didn't want to continue with allowing controlled hunting in the village. So to me, that's you getting back to the argument, which is fine. So we reopen that again because, as I've told, I remember this room was full, and half of the room wanted hunting and half did not. Half of this room was filled with people who didn't want them running into the side of their car and causing an accident. The other half of the room loved feeding them every morning. So I think we're going to get back, and it is a discussion that needs to happen, but we're getting back to the argument. I like Bill's comment he made during that time frame, which, what was it? Do you recall what you said? The solution that you would like? Or you asked?
Don't recall.
You asked, can't we just give the deer the morning after pill?
Oh, yes.
That was your solution. I liked it, but I don't know how feasible it is.
Well, we'll make you the game warden, and you can go out looking for them the next morning.
No, I would just rather shoot them, so
Let
don't
me know
worry.
how you make out.
No, that was Bill's solution. You sent Bill to do that. My solution was a little quicker than that.
You could object to that.
But it's got to start somewhere.
Yes, but I think we are, and I think this open forum on it is a good,
And but obviously we have to hear what the
I'd
planning
like to
commission
look
comes
into
back
the
with.
people who were here before, and let's bring them back and have further discussion with them.
well, I can bring it back. I know
Yeah,
them.
let's bring them back, okay? And let's have further discussion with them and see if we can't thin the herd and hopefully, I mean, babies are having babies, and they're just, fawns are all over the place, and then those fawns are going to be having fawns, and they're not having one, they're having two at a time, so we have a real problem.
Yep.
So,
Okay. We can do that.
I'm trying to keep this
Or
up.
against one.
Yes, any other comments? Yes.
One point.
You have to come up front. Charlie will give me
I hit
daggers.
a deer years ago. The deer seemed to get away, but my car didn't. I mean, huge, major damage on 84. But I have deer whistles on the car now, and that works. And I thought I'd at least mention that because they are a great menace on the road. They cost about $20 each, and they're under the... I don't know. I have someone put them on. I don't know anything about mechanics. But I don't want to ever hit a deer again. It's as if you're hitting a tank. So I'm very familiar with the
What does a deer
problem.
whistle sound like?
I don't know, I'm not a deer.
Like a dog whistle.
It's like a dog whistle. You don't hear it, they hear it.
And what is
I
a
had them
deer?
on my car at one point.
You have it too.
But I don't have them on my car now. I should probably.
It
But I don't
works.
know
I
if
mean,
they
I
work.
haven't hit a deer in 30 years.
Yeah, right.
And there are a lot of them, awful.
Okay, any other comments? With no further comments, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the deer fence law until the next meeting, which is,
The next meeting is,
Probably 12.
well, the organizational meeting doesn't count, so it would be the 12th.
12. So we'll keep it open for all intents and purposes until the July 12th meeting.
Right, okay, so, and then I
Have a
guess...
second?
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think we're going to make a switch in the
Yeah.
organization of the agenda here if it's legal.
Absolutely, yes, it is. Even for the FD, yeah, there should have been a
Because I
presentation.
think we'll bring forward,
Should have been a presentation, a hearing, not a, should have been a board presentation, not a discussion.
we'll bring forward the discussion item, which Ed has, and when Alfie spoke last time, we all knew it was coming.
And one day I'll get used to this.
That lovely picture. Did you draw that, Ed?
I did. My hand.
Wow, I'm impressed.
My Crayolas.
Well, it's up.
So just briefly, so as we discussed last time when we asked for the listing of current Unit 16, we discussed that this would be coming.
Look in the books.
I'd just like to open it up, talk a little bit about the district and the need for these trucks, just give an overview, and I'm going to turn this over to Ed, who's been doing all the homework on this. Just a brief comparison for the districts and the use of these apparatus for the Southampton Fire Department specifically. We cover a full district of just over 23 square miles, which is just under 4,000 households.
Well, you get it. Oh, music too. Even as video soundtrack. You guys. There you go. You have one?
I do, thank you, Bill. Alfie, you said, would you mind backing up? Ed?
So the district in total covers just under 4,000 households. We respond to approximately 1,250 calls a year, depending on the given year. It's been up and down. Recently, our years have been record years for responses. We currently do that with a total apparatus of 25 pieces, including 2 ladder units. In our district, things to note, we do cover certain structures that aren't found in some other districts, including 8 different schools and daycares, Southampton Hospital, Town Hall, the Care Center, a few of the golf courses, most notably National, as far as the structured height. And then one of the other things that applies to our district is a lot of our residential structures in Southampton are actually comparable to commercial structures in some other fire districts. So that's really the size of the structures that we're dealing with for the need of the ladder apparatus. Just for comparison to some of our neighboring departments, as I said, we're just under 4,000 households. North Sea right to our north covers just under 2,000. Bridgehampton Fire Department at 627. Hampton Bays is a little bit bigger at 4,800. Then Sag Harbor at 1,400. So household-wise and the structures, the amount of structures, we're on the higher end. Call volume-wise, Southampton Fire Department by far answers most amount of alarms in a given year. I said we're at 1,250 calls for the year. North Sea is approximately 225 on any given year. Bridgehampton Fire Department runs EMS. Their fire side alone without the ambulance calls is at 650. Hampton Bays at a little bit over 300 annually, and Sag Harbor around 550. So Southampton, as far as call volume-wise, we definitely have the call volume to use these vehicles. As I said, the most notable reason for us for these ladder vehicles specifically are the structures at height. Thankfully, we haven't really had a need for that, but should the need arise, these are the vehicles that would pretty much be the primary response for evacuation and getting up to those upper floors in a speedy manner. Some of the response numbers for these vehicles in particular are kind of skewed. With current Unit 16, one of the problems we've had with that is that it's a very great unit for getting up pretty much in a vertical direction. One of the problems we have in our district is being able to park out on the street and reach the roof or a heightened part of the structure from that street level, which is more of the horizontal reach on these trucks, not the vertical. The ISO ratings for our district are impacted by the use of and by having the ladder trucks. Right now we have the 2 on opposite sides of the district, which gives us the maximum coverage either way you go. But as far as the actual need for these vehicles, it's really for those structures that I said thankfully we haven't had a problem with yet, but we still have to be prepared for the day that does happen. So as far as the replacement unit, I'm going to turn this over to Ed Corrigan, who's been leading the way on the research, and let him talk about it. And if you have any questions, we'll both be here.
You can take it easier. Yep. Edward Corrigan, 29-year member of the Hook and Ladder Company, chairman of our purchase committee for a new ladder truck, head driver of the current ladder truck that's due for replacement that you all did agree to put us out for sale at your last meeting. So thank you for that. I'm here tonight with another member of the committee, Manny Escobar. Both Manny and I are past captains of Hook and Ladder Company. Joining us also is Freddie Pearsall from the Rosenbauer manufacturing company, the local sales rep. So as Chief Callahan, presented the first 2 pages of the book, all that information is in the book that Chief Callahan just reviewed. So as chairman of the committee, we've been looking at trucks, ladder trucks specifically, for the last 15 months. Both Manny and myself were in Tennessee in October to a convention where we were learning about how to purchase fire apparatus as well as looking at different ladder trucks. The committee has, in a whole, there's 5 of us on the committee, have looked at 6 ladder trucks. Physically, we've gone as a full committee. Some of those ladder trucks have been here in Southampton visiting us. Some we've commuted down to southern Delaware, northern New Jersey, surrounding locations to see ladder trucks. So the third section in the book that we handed out is a spreadsheet comparing sort of the 4 of the top ladder trucks that we were looking at. On that is our current truck that we're due for replacement, and approximately 26 different categories that we used as criteria in purchasing. The truck we've picked is the Rosenbauer T-Rex Aerial. Its overall truck height is the shortest, lowest height that we've looked at. Again, height goes into play for our access ability. Wheelbase, it has the shortest wheelbase out of all the trucks we looked, which goes right back into turning radius of the truck. Looking at the cab size, has a smaller cab size, which equals a smaller truck. Inside cramp angle, it relates to turning angle, how tight the truck will turn. Our turning radius, curb to curb, and turning radius of wall to wall, that means the way the tires are tracking, how tight of an area that we can turn before we drive over a curb, and then wall to wall, approaching driveways that are sometimes planted out those curbs, what those cramp angles are. This truck is 4.5 feet longer than the most recent trucks that we've purchased in Southampton Fire Department, and yet it has the same turning radius, and we can turn inside of those same locales. So for a ladder truck, that is it's gigantic leap, because as you can imagine, you know, ladders, we carry ladders, our trucks are generally really large. This truck has a vertical reach of 115 feet. The truck we're replacing has 134 feet of vertical reach. Where this truck really shines, besides its dimensions, is its horizontal reach. At 93 feet, we have full payload of 1,400 pounds in the bucket. Full reach at 250 pounds, we're out 105 feet, which I can tell you, when you stand next to that truck and the bucket is out 105 feet, it's a country mile. And that is approximately 15 feet longer in the horizontal reach than any other truck that we've looked at. And when Chief Callahan said that, that's really what we need in this department, is that horizontal reach. You know, the size of the houses that we respond to, the landscaping that's around those houses, we need that horizontal reach. The bucket payload, I approached on 1,400 pounds. That's 400 pounds heavier than the next truck in line. And that's before we start flowing water, because there's another skew. When we actually are flowing water, the amount of, the weight of the water going up those aerials affects the payload. So this truck, we're also still above 1,000 pounds of payload when we're flowing water. Bucket size, we can put 5 people in the bucket. We have a platform that will fold down that we can actually work and access to the roofs without actually fully having to step onto the roof because of this work platform, which relates back to safety issues. As far as bucket size, it's the largest bucket size, again with that 5 people, so we're able to carry more tools. We actually have 50 feet of hose that we can actually, you know, extend into a building if we have to, and flow that water through the bucket. We have spray nozzles on the bucket in the event that we're over fire, that we can keep the bucket cool and safe from fire. That was a problem down at Sag Harbor at the movie theater fire that a number of ladder trucks had responded to. You know, a lot of trucks have that capability. This ladder truck has an articulating boom. We can actually go 18 feet below grade at 93 feet away from the truck. Which means, you know, what does that mean? Well, construction sites, people get injured down in new foundations, excavation pits, things of that nature, which we have responded to. We can actually set up on the construction sites and reach down and rescue them instead of carrying them up by hand, where we risk damaging or injuring the responders that are there helping. Shinnecock Canal, you know, God forbid something happened in there. We can actually reach down and almost across the canal and retrieve people out of the water there. And then, you know, series of ground ladders that we carry on the truck. The other thing is pump size. We have a pump on the truck that is comparable to all of the pumpers that we have in Southampton Fire Department. So we're a multi-using tool with 2,000 gallons a minute of pump. Nozzles to fight fires are located up in the bucket. Some of them, other ones were located at different points. So that really came down to all the criteria that we compared to the other ladder trucks that we were looking at. The next section of your book is a actual color brochure put out by Roosevelt of the T-Rex area. And there are some highlights in there that I'd like to call to your attention. The top right corner of the first page is an up and over section that shows how the bucket can actually reach up over the building and still go out horizontal. This past spring, late April, early May, I don't remember the exact date of it, but we responded to the National Golf Links fire, and we actually utilized both of our ladder trucks at that fire. The ladder truck we're replacing has an articulating boom, and we were able to sweep the top of the roof and go wherever we wanted on the roof. We had great placement. Our other ladder truck was on the other side of the building, and that ladder truck is not an articulating boom. And when they were trying to access like the center of the roof of the porch that we're working on, the ladder came up over the parapet wall, but then they couldn't actually step down, and there were some soft spots in the roof that they couldn't get to. So they were literally using a ladder to climb out of the bucket to then access the roof at a safe spot, which, as you can imagine, in an emergency situation, is not the best. So that was just a neat depiction showing that picture there. The platform is pivoting. What does that mean? We can actually come up to the structure and actually turn the platform left or right to get better access, potentially going through a window or accessing the side of the house. Automatic terrain balancing. The truck automatically levels itself regardless of what the terrain is. And it's able to set up on I think it's a 6-foot grade change across the truck, that the truck will self-level and give us operation. The next page talks about short jacking. What does that mean? Well, our jack spread on the truck, it's like a crane. We have to put outriggers out that will support us. This truck works in a short jack configuration, which means we can just deploy the jacks under the truck and not have to reach the outriggers out. Full reach on the outriggers is 19 feet. As you can imagine, it's a pretty big footprint for us in some of our settings. This truck, we can deploy the jack straight down and still have 360-degree rotation of the aerial device. We may not have the full reach on our short jack side, but it gives us full 360-degree range in some form or fashion. And the truck will tell us how far we can go and let us go there until we run into it. The further the jack goes out, the further we can go. So it's always monitoring that for us. Our current ladder trucks, we cannot work on the short jack side of the truck. We can operate the truck, but it has to be on the full extension of the jacks on the other side. So it would generally close down to just 180 degrees of use of the truck. The truck monitors the load that's in the bucket, how far out we're going. It'll tell us how much payload we can carry with us at the time. That more comes back to if we're rescuing people, and we can actually overload the bucket, and the bucket will allow us to go back to the truck, but it will not allow us to extend further into a hazard. But no matter what the payload is, it will let us come back, which is interesting because we can also monitor that on the LCD as a live update right away. There's a picture showing the work platform in the center of the brochure. The front of the platform actually opens up and has a fold-down area. We can actually roll a wheelchair into that or out of it. Specifically, probably out of it if we were taking people out of a hospital or the care facility in Southampton, the rehab facility, which I actually spent time at, unfortunately, this past winter due to some family members that were there. And both Southampton Hospital and the Southampton Rehab Center had their elevators shut down. For Southampton Hospital was about a month and a half. They were down to one elevator working, which astonished me. I was at the rehab center numerous times where the elevators actually shut down. And at the rehab center, you actually can't use the stairs because of everybody else there. They won't let you there. So you have to wait for the elevators to come up or, navigate to other sections, which was, again, being first responder in the fire department, that was disconcerting to me, and really love the aspect of this bucket with that. There's another picture showing how the stretcher actually goes into the bucket. With that fold-down platform, we can actually push the Stokes basket inside and actually sit on the floor of the bucket. Our ladder trucks currently, that Stokes basket is actually sitting up on top of the bucket. Again, it's all, all safety. Lowering somebody down to the ground and being able to pick that location opposed to starting at 4 or 5, 10 feet off the ground is huge. And then the last page, the target control system, which is really neat. God forbid we do have a call at the hospital or rehab center and we have to rescue multiple people out. This has a semi-auto feature pilot feature to it, which means it tracks our last movement. And we can commit that to memory, and with one lever, one switch, actually go back to the same location in the same pattern multiple times without having to reconfigure. So speed up of that, is immense. And then, so that's pretty much it for the cover shore. And then it goes into the budget of the truck.
Before we jump into the budget of the truck, when we last spoke, there were really two things that really impressed me. One is that unit itself has better ability in getting in the driveways and the narrow arrangements that we have in the village today. And a lot of it is not that the structures have gotten any smaller, it's that they've gotten bigger hedges, which we were discussing with the deer fence, that, when you used to have 4-foot hedges or 3-foot hedges, now you got 8-foot hedges.
Yeah, so this truck will actually allow us to reach over that, some of those walls. We actually responded, I think it's about 18 months ago, Manny, you were there, to a chimney fire in December. Snow on the ground, it was an early snowfall. The the property was landscaped right to the driveway edges, and we were able to pull a ladder truck in, but we had no access to actually set that bucket down on the ground once we were into that location. This new ladder truck would actually give us that ability to set down. Another thing that I didn't talk about was ground sweep. Ground sweep means where can the bucket sit on the ground in relationship to the truck. The ladder truck we had there that night only gave us 2 points of ground sweep. 90 degrees perpendicular to the truck was the only place we could set down. If we had to rescue somebody out of that place, we could not put them down onto the ground due to the truck placement. This truck gives us 360-degree ground sweep. We can put the bucket on the ground no matter where that truck is parked and accessing.
If I could just expand on a little bit what you just said, Mayor, there, since you did touch on it, maneuverability. I was just going to mention one of the fires I was at, and two things that this truck, one of which you pointed about maneuverability, but I can relate it to an experience that I witnessed. It was a couple of years ago, maybe, the fire off at Deerfield, and two things the first thing that had to happen to get the ladder truck in, it was a long driveway leading back from state, set back in the woods, so they had to actually cut trees down to get the ladder truck in and maneuver around. So maneuverability, key one here, as the mayor pointed out, and two, which what the ladder truck was needed for, as it was touched upon, was not, again, as Chief Callahan had said, not so much the height do we need these ladders for currently, thankfully. It's about the depth of these houses. And so two things comes to mind with this vehicle here, the new one you're proposing, was, again, that we had to cut trees down to get the current apparatus in and maneuverable. And then secondly, what it was needed for was because we had this large, expansive house, and we needed the horizontal reach to go over into the center of the house, center of this roof, to extinguish the fire. So that's what I like about what this covers is maneuverability, being able to turn and the tighter radius and the smaller to go through not just our tight village landscape driveways, but these long, winding, landscaped and tree-laden estates outside of that are in the district, that are outside the village, and of course the horizontal. So again, I was going to mention that, but since you touched on that, Mayor, I just wanted to.
If I could back that up with some more interesting information. 29 years in the department, this is probably the first fire truck that I've seen purchased that's actually smaller than the truck we're replacing.
Yeah.
So
that's from what I've seen, yes, that alone is an oddity, yes.
Yes, and with that, over the ladder truck that we're replacing, full horizontal reach, we have 45 feet longer in horizontal reach, and the truck is 2.5 feet shorter in length and 11 inches shorter in height, and turning radius is 20 feet tighter in turning radius. The truck we're replacing has a 50-foot turning radius. And when I tell you that's a country mile when you turn that truck around, it is a country mile.
No, I've seen it, so yes, no, that's,
It currently does a lot of three-point turns.
yes. So that's,
Going someplace.
and the below grade, that's impressive too. That's
Yeah.
new now.
And that's below grade at 93 feet away from the truck.
That's big.
And to be able to,
And the examples you pointed out are big, because there's a picture in the Southampton Village Police Department lobby of first responders and officers carrying a victim out of a pit, and that alone right there could
in the last 3 months, we've had, the fire department has assisted EMS on 2 rescues. One out of Town Hall, where we took somebody down the stairs in Stokes baskets because the stretcher would not fit in the elevator in the town. If we had this truck, we could have gone out of a window and not have to have risked the 8 of us that carried the Stokes basket down the flight of stairs. It wasn't 3 weeks later, we responded to a house in the estate section where we had to take somebody out of a second floor bedroom down flights of stairs as well, which, as you can imagine, can be quite tricky carrying people in baskets down.
You don't want to drop them.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, Ed, you had mentioned is that this is capable of, it has a storage for water so that you can, if you arrive first, you can start pumping right away.
Yep.
Plus, which I don't think you pointed out, it's got the big storage area for additional ladders and spikes and
Yep.
equipment that you need.
So this truck is considered a quint, which means it's a multi-purpose ladder truck. In order to be considered a quint, you need a pumper to pump water. You need crosslays for attack, meaning that you can be the first due truck there and actually run into a fire. It has the aerial platform, which is most important to my company, as well as ground ladders to then be able to ladder the building in a traditional sense, as well as carrying tank water that, again, if you're the first truck there, you actually have some complement of water to attack a fire. So it's a multidisciplined truck that we're purchasing. The other neat aspect of this truck is, as you can imagine, I've highlighted in some of the technology of the truck. It's basically a computer on wheels. The truck was designed in Germany. It has a dedicated SIM card, which means a cell phone to it. When we start the truck up to either take it out for training or respond to a call, it pops up on an engineer's computer monitor back in Austria where the truck was designed. So God forbid something goes wrong with the truck, there's somebody right there that knows what went wrong with the truck and can tell us how to either solve the problem or give us a workaround to continue, keep working. The current truck that we have has, in the 23 years that we've had it in service, has broken down at calls. And, as you can imagine, over a fire with people in the basket, it's a little disheartening up there. Where do you go now? Type situation. And, we were waiting for mechanics to get out there and, step us through. So technology is just unbelievable with this truck from that standpoint.
Now the fun part.
So what's, you said what it is, what does it do? Now, what's it going to cost?
Will one be enough?
We do have 2 ladder trucks. So the next section does go into the budget of the truck.
Where's that?
That is behind the green section. I apologize, I didn't number the
The light green?
purple fuel. I'm sorry. I have the same information in a different book. You all have a fancier book than me. So the overall price is 1.58 for this truck, $1,587,000. What makes that up is $25,000 of additional equipment going into the truck, installing radios after the truck is built that will match the radios that we utilize for the Southampton Fire Department as well as the police. Tool mounting, all the tools that we carry on the truck, lettering, decaling, calling it Southampton Fire Department. The committee is actually six of us on the committee, and we have to take 3 trips to the factory in Minnesota. Is that right?
Right, yep.
Yep. Oh, hey, Howard.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
So the village ultimately pays for those trips. However, the manufacturer is responsible to actually take us there, so it's included in the price of the truck. Interest, which can be knocked off, potentially. The salesman can speak better to that. Because the truck has a 13-month build timeline to it, there are categories across that timeline that we can draw lines and say, this section of the truck is complete, we accept it, we'll pay for it, and save some money on interest there. Then we've made some changes to the truck, which of course they're charging us from their standard, $4,600, and then some mounting of equipment. Those are minor numbers. And then to get the truck smaller, we relocated different tools that were pretty drastic to the truck. The first time I told them I wanted to cut 2.5 feet off the truck, they were jumping up and down and yelling at me, and my design sense kicked in and kept pushing and pushing. That push got me a smaller truck, but also came at a little bit higher price tag. My apologies, but I do believe it's worth it. And then, just their standard things that they put onto the truck. Now, 1.58 sounds like a giant number. In context, the average ladder truck on Long Island is 1.3 million. So, that's where, in fairness, we should say that we're starting to look. Because if we pick some of the other trucks on our list, we'd be at 1.3 million. Well, Ed, you're still a few $100,000 above. Why? Well, so we've put $139,000 of extras on the truck. You back those extras out, we're at a base truck for this of $144,000. $148,000 is the difference. So the $148,000 is what the premium is for this truck, above the average truck for Long Island. So when you compare it to that, to me does not seem so bad. A neighboring department, Bridgehampton, purchased a ladder truck in the last 24 months. They paid $1.3 million for their truck. They do not have a bucket. It's a straight ladder truck. That ladder truck is actually longer than the truck we're replacing, which comes back into accessibility. Its horizontal reach is down around 65 feet. And they paid 1.3. We have 105 full horizontal reach for another $148,000, which does not seem so great when it could be somebody's life in the balance. And then we fall into all of the technical specifications then, which I don't know if anyone wants to hear all of that information tonight, but it's there for you.
Well, Ed, you might, for the public's good, get in how it would be paid for, your funding and your look at, Alfie, at replacing trucks as they age out.
Perfect. So we are very fortunate in Southampton Fire Department that the Village of Southampton owns Southampton Fire Department and has a great relationship with the town of Southampton as far as fire department service goes. And you all should be credited with, you actually have a capital reserve for us that is being contributed to every year out of the tax dollars. So it's my understanding that if the village was able to write the check for this truck today, which the village generally does not do until the truck is fully complete and being delivered, the money is sitting in a capital reserve fund currently, and does not increase our tax burden. And even at 1.5, there is still additional money in that capital reserve for future trucks coming down the road. The check for this truck will not be written till sometime, if you would vote on it tonight, it's 15 to 16 months down the road. I mentioned earlier that the build time is 13 months. That build time starts after our first visit to the factory, where we totally finalized what this truck is looking like. We are still playing with the size of this cab, which equals at this point the size of the wheelbase. I haven't told Howie yet, but I have another idea to make my wheelbase even shorter. So I'm taking boxing gloves out to Minnesota if you all grant me that ability to go.
If I could just elaborate something on that, Ed, as the mayor pointed out, and I want the public to know the distinction is, because it's been mentioned even by board members, when you mention capital reserves, that goes to purchase any large item within the village. And we have capital reserves in our general budget that we put in. And the capital reserves you're referring to is, as you alluded to, a unique situation because, again, we're a municipality-owned department. Southampton Village owns it. We have a contract with the Southampton District, as you pointed out, and they pay the village for fire service, and it's agreed upon contract. We do it every 2 years with them. And they're in agreement, and we go over every apparatus with them as well. So what's important to note about that is the funding you're talking about, this capital reserves and this funding, is a capital reserve set aside solely for the purpose of the fire department, and does not commingle with other capital reserve and capital expenditures we do on other village departments. So that's the uniqueness you're referring to, meaning that the funding is there through the district and the village taxpayers. It's not an extra burden to the village or the town taxpayer because it's put aside through our agreed upon contract and well-funded and solely put aside for purchases, as large as it may seem, but solely put aside through the district and the village for this moment. So it's not an extra burden, not an extra layout. The money's there, and there's no extra tax. And that's the important thing, again, that I want the taxpayer to realize. Because they're going to sit there and go, oh, that's a hell of a lot of money. And it is.
Absolutely.
But I think what you've done a good job in pointing out is the value added. You get what you pay for. And it's been pointed out, the billions of market value we have just in the village alone. Now let's add those 4,000 total homes in the district.
Right.
You're right, that extra premium of $148,000 on top of the average, in my book, is well worth it. And I think a lot of the homeowners who have been saved and their structures have been salvaged, and the ones going forward, I think, would agree with that.
What's the life expectancy of a truck like this, Ed?
All ladder trucks have a 25-year replacement. Yeah. And we have 2 ladder trucks in Southampton Fire Department, and we're on a 12-and-a-half-year stagger. So our last ladder truck was purchased it's actually 11 years ago. We've started this process so that this ladder truck will be at 25 years by the time we accept delivery of the new one. So we as a department have staggered that expense out there in that. The other thing to really touch on is that, our ISO report, which is the fire rating for the village of Southampton as well as the town outlying districts, we currently have the highest rating that we can have, which is a good number to have, because that equates back to the fire insurance that you're paying on your homeowner's insurance. You are getting the lowest rate you can because of the equipment that you're investing into.
The homeowners in the district, and that's important. Again,
Yeah.
you get what you pay for, that value added.
Yes.
Having that very good rating saves money on insurance premiums for our homeowners.
And you all did react to that report when it came out. That first report that called for 2 ladder trucks came out, I think, about 28 years ago. And you all sent us shopping to buy the second ladder truck to drive that premium down. As you can imagine, we're sitting on a lot of valuable real estate, and that equates right back to your insurance rates. And mine, I'm a village resident as well. So, thank you.
Important thing.
Yes. The other fun note is, again, I'm Edward Corrigan, 29-year members in Southampton Hook and Ladder Company.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I am 3rd generation Southampton Hook and Ladder Company. So my family, Corrigan family, has actually responded and serviced and manned every ladder truck the Southampton Fire Department has owned, starting with the 1912 American LaFrance that we still own in the antique barn. And my oldest son, Luke, is here, who's a junior fireman and looking to put his application in. So there's a lot of heart and soul that's gone into this research for this ladder truck. So
That's great stuff.
thank you so much.
Yep.
you, Ed.
If you have any more questions, I can turn over to Chief Callahan as well as two of the representatives from Rosenbauer. If you like, I think they might have a video that we can play of the truck as well, if you'd like.
Sure.
I think it's about 5 minutes long.
Oh, that'd be great.
But you might have to.
Well, actually, wait a second, before,
No.
you want to answer? You want to answer?
We had spent a lot of time on this, and the financials are good. I think there was one outstanding question, just the warranty period, and
Howie or Freddie, warranty of the truck.
Good evening. My name's Howie Snow. I'm the president of Eagle Fire. We're the dealer for Rosenbauer. Warranties, our standard warranties are 2 years, and I believe we've got a 3-year program in there, Red. You can at any time extend the warranties if needed. It becomes a certain time with warranties where the trucks don't break down a lot. Thank goodness we have a very good record with that. Never had a ladder failure. So at a certain point, after the nuts and bolts of getting the trucks online and debugged a little bit, at a certain point, $10,000 bills for insurance for repair of the trucks don't make sense. So our standard warranty is really in place for you guys, just to get that truck in service, so there are no hiccups with the rig.
Interesting.
The benefit that Ed had mentioned with that wireless remote control capability for our guys in Rosenbauer in Austria to look at the truck is really pretty big. We've had instances where they've actually called up the department and said, by the way, your temperature's overheating, you got a bad tire, your alternator's not working right, you lost a leg in the alternator system, your hydraulic pressure allowed, your filter's clogged. That phone rings back here in the U.S. Ed and his team, or your technician, your mechanic in your garage, and say, oh, by the way, take a look at the rig, and here's what you take a look at. That's a big plus on a very big fire truck, right? That kind of stuff makes sense.
That's not, yeah, that's not common in other manufacturers, no.
Yeah, so that's a good feature for the rig.
And if I could jump in and add to that. So I mentioned we went down to Southern Delaware to look at a truck. It was actually this T-Rex truck that the department down there has. They've had it for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
7 years in service. They allowed us to manipulate and use that truck for about 5 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Again, volunteer organization, they came in, met with us. They let us drive it around their community. They continually let us set it up and use the truck, put it up on top of the roof of their firehouse, reach out across the neighbor's property. I mean, we had good firematic fun with this truck. In the 7 years they've had the truck, they've had one mechanical failure, which was a solenoid on the jacking operation. And they were the ones who called us to our attention to really sign up for this because, like Howie was saying, the phone rang to the head mechanic. That was the number that the Austria had. Said, listen, you got solenoid, X, Y, and Z out on the left side of the truck. We just put one in FedEx. You'll have it in a day and a half. And your mechanic can replace that.
Wow.
So Kenny's going to be getting a call from Austria?
Yeah.
Do we have to teach Kenny German now?
In that call, the engineer told him how to actually pull the jack back in and work around the solenoid while, for the 48 hours till they got the new one installed. So, it's amazing. And the other thing along those lines is the general mechanics of the truck. There's no proprietary parts. We can actually go down to P&G Auto here and pretty much buy any part for the truck proper of this.
And that's big. I'm going to bring that up. Thank you for bringing it up because a lot of time with other manufacturers, they're very proprietary parts. Not so much the ladders, but even just the engine parts and everything around it. And that can take time and extra. And the fact that you can go, like I said, we can send.
Yeah. So the engineers for Rosenbauer have worked with the other standard manufacturers that are feeding into this truck to use standard parts and not have to custom build something for this ladder truck. Whereas other manufacturers will go to Cummins and say, listen, I want you to, change this or change that because we're doing this. Rosenbauer, they've bowed out and allowed those other manufacturers to hold their ground and done something different to allow that. So that's huge. There are still proprietary parts when it comes to the ladder that Rosenbauer fully owns, so be it. But like I said, they know when it breaks, when we're signed up with the monitoring and are working with us to get us those parts. So.
Thank you.
movie.
It's another movie. Want your popcorn? Right there, girl?
Yep. So, again, video.
Bring the dancer.
I do have color samples of the truck as well.
meant by a truck without video.
Now, you guys?
I agree, I'd like to see everything on the screen.
Can we get sound? Not that they're talking, it's just music to go with it.
Okay. There we go.
It's a great looking truck, isn't it?
Yes.
It's good looking as a crew that'll be driving it.
Oh, thank you.
Not quite, not quite.
I shaved for you. So that talks about the cramp angle, 45 degrees. I actually cut the front bumper off and put all that stuff someplace else. Not to mention that Rosenbauer was a crane manufacturer, or is currently still a crane manufacturer. So
Oh, I see.
part of the truck, if we consider a crane, the first leg of the boom, we have 8,500 pounds of lift capacity. Second leg of the boom has 4,500 pounds of lift capacity. And the third, I think, is down to 2,500 pounds, which equates out to about 35 feet, 60 feet, and 80, I think. But they pull a car up out of the ditch. So that's considered the first leg there because the boom is sucked all the way in. So that's the LCD that I was talking about, monitoring the weight load that you're lifting. Very impressive. The department in Delaware that we went to, they actually picked up their chief's vehicle and put it 360 degrees around the truck.
Is that the Alfie?
So that shows that really articulating boom, how that really worked, being able to potentially go over. Oh, there's the Stokes basket like I was talking about. You know, now they can go to whatever height you want to go into the ambulance. Whereas now, we can't set our bucket on the ground. We're working from 10 feet up to still bring them down. And here they can sit right on the ground. The bucket is large enough that we'll actually have tools permanently mounted that we generally use. Some of our mechanical saws that we use, small pike poles, axes, shovels will permanently be in the bucket for us. So that shows that the low-grade capability there.
start with that. Ed, could you, or someone, Chief, outline how this gets purchased? You know, what's the process of, like, you have specs in here, so
So I guess there's two major ways to purchase this. There's
don't mind the man behind the curtain.
You sound better, Rich.
I like that. That was good. We should have little meetings like that. That was a nice effect.
Man from outer space.
It's my understanding in the last few years, the village in their capital purchases for equipment through the parks, highway, whatever other division you all buy equipment for, purchase off of an NJPA co-op, which means it's I believe it's a state approved or federal approved purchase list for municipalities, which means it doesn't have to go out for public bid, which saves the village money from legal fees, writing those contracts and things of that nature. This truck is approved on that co-op.
So the whole significance of that co-op is it's basically a pre-approval process. Before that came into play, you'd have to individually bid each piece of whatever equipment a municipality would have to buy, and again, adds to the time and the length of service, getting it in service. So again, that's why this came about, and it's a pre-approved process of which this
fits
qualifies.
Yes, correct. And
So upon authorization, we'd be going through that and sending basically out to purchase the vehicle based on what's in this book through that.
correct. And how that works on your side, I don't know. I just know this truck fits all of that categories. You all approve it at whatever meeting you approve it at, hopefully tonight. And then we go out to Rosenbauer with that signed contract that says we're buying this fire truck. We sit down and finalize those plans at that point in time. Rosenbauer then builds the truck to our liking, to our specifications, to our approval, delivers that truck to us, and then that's when Southampton Village actually writes the check for the truck.
And you mentioned something along the way, based on certain intervals being met during the construction phase, that could actually reduce the price.
Correct.
After this, I will.
By some quantity. There was a number spelled out of something like $26,000, which they're saying is interest of them carrying that money. I don't know if that's a 40% payment, 50% payment, or a 60% payment. You know, I don't know the actual details of that. Certainly, we can find all that information out.
Well,
That's
that
your
can be
price.
worked
I
out.
mean, it can be worked out, but it's available.
Yep, exactly. And that's probably Steve and Eileen's
Right.
Yeah, Steve will
category.
be
Yeah,
back
yeah.
tomorrow.
Come on, Eileen.
I know, come on, Ed.
See,
I saw the calculator over there.
the CPA's details.
No, that's the timer.
Oh, gosh.
You're over the 3
My
minutes.
glasses.
Does the board have any other questions or points? You know,
Any questions? I don't think, Ed, we're going to vote on it tonight because some of the board members, this is the first time they've seen it.
Absolutely, understood.
And I'm a strong believer that you need to digest everything for a bit, so.
We do have
But it's very impressive.
Thank you so much. We, in the fire department, we have a series of events and processes in, as you can imagine, these purchases.
Right.
We have met all of that and have full support of Southampton Fire Department and the governing bodies that govern us inside of that.
in the district.
The town commissioners that you all work with, fire commissioners, they have seen this presentation and to my knowledge are supporting the truck as well.
That's very key.
Their only comments were to make sure that we followed the in-house procedures, which we have met. And I believe, I wasn't at their last meeting, but I believe they were, fully supporting the village to buy this truck.
Great.
That is my understanding.
Have they done any written correspondence to that effect?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that's what the board requires, we can.
I think it would be good for the record.
We would want it without a doubt
Okay.
going forward.
Their next meeting also, just so you know, is July 12th. I think their start time is 7 p.m.
Okay.
But I can certainly reach out to them and
Yeah,
see
if
where
they
they stand
could.
in that, if they
That'd
could
be-
have something before then.
Yep. Be great.
Thank you.
Lot of
You've done a
good
lot of
vetting.
work. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure, thank you.
Lots of good information.
No, they're for you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Take it home and read it, Bill. It's all yours.
If you have trouble,
Color pictures, too.
I watch the news.
After you watch the news and color pictures,
For your
color
coffee
tabs.
table.
Thank you, Chief.
And lots of good due diligence on your part.
thank you so much for all of
Thank you
your
for the
time.
terrific
And thank you and all your force
Yeah.
for all the services you do.
Oh, thank you.
You know, I know you guys are running around all the time.
So, yeah, so, you know, a lot of that information Alfred Callahan just pulled together over the last few days about our call logs compared to our neighbors. And, you know, I always knew that we were better in Southampton, but, you know, my gosh.
But that's why
Really good.
that's why we gave him the big radio there.
Exactly.
I can suggest it if you want.
He'll never have radio
Thank you so much,
envy.
everyone, for all of your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you for the information. Great job, guys.
Great.
Good research.
Your son's a lot, is that your tall son standing
That
there?
is his tall son standing.
Where'd those genes come from?
I've been asking that for
Hey, okay, wasn't really going to go there, Ed, but, you know, the mayor brought it up.
I don't have to worry about you.
On me.
Oh, man.
Thank you. Great job, Ed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, talk to you soon. So it was suggested that, since we just put it on at the last minute, that we do the resolution number 6
First,
first,
yes,
and we can then move on to the other resolutions.
Yep.
Sounds good.
And if I could just say that resolution number 6 is sort of dear to me because I always felt that it was such a need, and it's great to see so many people come out and give so much of their time to it. So thank you all before even we do the resolutions. Go ahead, Eileen.
Okay. So resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following individuals as officers of the Ocean Rescue Department of the Village of Southampton. James Arnold, Chief. Nick Palumbo, Assistant Chief. Mark Bagianos, Captain. Luke O'Connor, Lieutenant. Dan Claude, Lieutenant. Can I have a motion?
Move.
And second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. And I want you all to come up. I don't think the press is here tonight, but Julie,
They
you
were
are
here.
so good at taking photos.
For any of the officers here?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Rich.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to throw you in. So everybody raise your right hand and repeat after me. Okay, I, and state your name,
I, James Arnold, mark my house,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of, and then your position as Ocean Rescue Department,
as Ocean Rescue Department,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay, so we're going to sign in. James, that's you. You're going to sign right here. Nick? Put it right here. You're going to sign right here. And Mark? Luke? Is Luke here?
Yes.
Right here. Thank you. Dan?
He's not here.
So he'll come and just have him come in and see.
Happy to do that.
Okay, that's great.
If you'd like to show, face this way. and
Yep,
get your-
I'll face this way. Mayor and Rich.
What a better thing for a group of surfer dudes, you know?
No, we're not in the
That's
peak. We'll
okay.
be photoshopped out anyway, so. You're the important guys.
Right.
Yay.
Yes, thank you.
We feel safer already.
Maybe I'll go swimming.
Extra layer of protection there, right? Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for stepping up, officers.
Happy to
do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's going to happen so quickly.
I'm impressed.
Good stuff.
We'll be in touch.
You got it.
Thanks so much. Yep, I'm just waiting for the mayor to...
We're just getting one clarification that it's Dan Claude Jr.
Oh, thank you.
The senior is also approved, but not Doc.
Okay, so it's Dan Claude Jr. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go now to resolution number 1. So resolved that the reading of the minutes for the public session of June 14, 2018 be dispensed with, and that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Number 2, resolved that the claims for the warrants dated June 26, 2018, totaling $33,077.97. Warrant number 2, general fund payables, $222,971.06. Warrant number 3, general fund, $31,766.69. Warrant number 1, trust fund, $27.60, and $27.60 for warrant number 1, CS Trust Fund, and $39,893.12 for warrant number 1, Capital Reserve Fund, be audited and approved. So now I'm going to read the...
We'll make a
Make a
motion.
motion? And a second.
Make the motion.
Second? Now,
On.
All right, now I read. Thank you for that assistance. Okay, so moving over to general payables. Econo signs, $4,545.42. Those are for various signs, stop signs, reflectors, traffic cones, Highway Department. Alpine Software Corp., $2,340. That's the finger reader for the kiosk for the fire department at the Hampton Road Firehouse. Stephen Rogoski, $1,000. That's for medical reimbursement. Miguel Aldrich, $1,000 for medical reimbursement. Roy Stevenson, $1,000 medical reimbursement. Integris Equipment, $17,024.95 for a cardiac monitor for the ambulance. The CSEA employee benefits, $29,807.26 for dental and eye. Norsec and Son, $1,350. That's for garbage and porta potties. PSEG Long Island Collection Services, $3,549.87. It's electric bill. Admit Computer Services, Inc., $21,641. It's a computer program for the police department. It's an annual fee. Suffolk Cement Precast, $2,442.60. Drain materials for White Street and Halsey Street. Perform Printing, Inc., $2,511.08. Those are books of parking tickets that were ordered. CC Electronics and Installations, $1,770. Light bar for fire department vehicle. Veripic, Inc., $3,638. Annual maintenance PD software. Viso Life, $2,148.15. Life insurance for ambulance active members. National Grid, $1,708.11 gas bill. Core Logic Real Estate Tax Service, $9,539.27. Refund of overpayment of property taxes. Alliance System Integrators, Inc., $6,561.90. Jobs Lane Camera System, Police Department. People's United Bank, $125,040. DPW Village Hall and paving, the serial bond payment. Frederick Bertrand, $2,562.96. Tax certificate payment. He held a lien on the property. And the following people are all the 4th of July parade. So Richard Siegler, $1,800. American Celtic Pipe Band, $200. Saffron United Pipe Band, $1,650. Lou Saxon Music, $3,000. Eastern Long Island Pole Pipes and Drum.
Police pipes and drum.
Thank you. $1,200.
Or Polish, I don't know which one.
Well, I don't know. Sag Harbor Community Band, $1,000. Banjo Rascals, $1,275. Westchester Brassman Drum, $6,000. Long Island Ambassadors Drum Corps, $1,500. The Patriot Brass Ensemble, Inc., $2,400. Dominic Cuccia, $2,500. American Patriotic Services, Inc., $1,800. And again, those are all vendors for the 4th of July parade coming up next week. On the last page, we have capital disbursement. Motorola Solutions, $8,844. Those are pagers for the fire department. There's a total of 20 of them. CC Electronics and Installations, $15,520. Custom Command Cabinet for the chief's vehicle. Alliance System Integrators, $15,529.12. Cooper's Beach Cameras. So back to the resolution. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 3, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Charles Nichols and Darren Fahey for chairs and umbrella attendants at Cooper's Beach for the 2018 season at the hourly rate of $9 an hour. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Matthew Bugliano as a lifeguard at Cooper's Beach for the 2018 season at an hourly cost of $13.50 an hour. Can I have a motion?
I make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Joseph Tuza as a paramedic for the Southampton Village Ambulance at an hourly rate of $25 an hour. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. 6 was done. Now we have some comments from the trustees.
Wow, right to that. Wonderful.
Trustee Uskowski.
That great celebration of our independence is next week. So I just want to thank in advance all our departments, our police department, our DPW, and all the neighboring departments and so forth that help us pull it off. It's a big undertaking, largest on Long Island, if I understand correctly. So again, I thank all the departments in advance and thank for the people who are going to show up and make it a great time and have a healthy and happy one. That's all I got.
Trustee Allen.
Thank you. The revised ethics code will be put forward for comment at our July 12th Board of Trustee meeting beginning at 6 p.m. We encourage everybody to come and hear about these updates. Thanks to the many who provided comments, including our current Ethics Committee with our Chair, Christian Picot, and several of the members, including Vince Serbinsky, Linda Gesford, David Campbell, and Mimi Michelle Guerra. Your input and work is much appreciated. We mentioned the Planning Commission meeting, which will be held next Thursday at 5 o'clock. The agenda topics, obviously, will be covering the deer fence law, but the additional topic that they will be studying now is the hospital, given that the hospital was given confirmation recently for the approval of the new build of the new hospital at the former LIU campus. So obviously more to come, but everyone's participation will be appreciated in the planning process. And last of all, thank you to all the residents who took the time to come out and vote. As the mayor and Nancy and everybody mentioned, it was a little bit of an obstacle course on the weekend in the summer with all the events, but you all get a gold star for voter turnout, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Nguyen.
Yeah. I don't have all that much to say other than I was pleased that we have finished the ground cover for the playground down in Agawam Park. We had to replace it because it wasn't soft enough, so if the children fell, they could be hurt, and we pulled it all out and replaced it. It looks beautiful, and hopefully this we'll go over now to the next part of this, which was the expansion of the playground. But anyway, we opened it on Saturday. They needed 48 hours to have it dry. We opened it on Saturday. We had a little bit of a ribbon cutting on Monday. And it's great, and if you have grandchildren or children, go over there and take a look, because it looks really terrific. Very proud of it.
It does look nice. And they have the fish decor.
Yeah, some fish in
I
there.
guess is what you'd call it. There's fish designs.
There's whales and sharks.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's absolutely fabulous.
Anyway, it's great.
And it is soft when you walk on it.
It is very soft.
I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
wait a
I
minute.
know. No,
It
it's
was
nice. It's very, very nice.
Very nicely done.
It's a good playground. People come from all over to use it, so it's a great playground.
Good comments at the Village Hall about it.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. So.
And Trustee Patrick.
I do have a comment. Chief Cummings, I saw something last week that just, my curiosity is overflowing. Some of your summer help were marking tires on Main Street for the parking issues, and I happened to be driving behind them very slowly, and I noticed that they were marking the tires, with a yellow chalk stick, and they were marking them on the side of the tire, whereas years ago they used to mark them on the tread. And I was wondering, how does that disappear so that you don't get a ticket a day later for a mark that was put on your car, on Thursday? And I must admit, I haven't seen any tires with those marks on them, so I don't know maybe it disappears after 24 hours or something, but what is the answer? And don't look it up.
It's just chalk, right on a blackboard chalk.
Right.
The problem when you mark the bottom of the tires, if you know your tire is marked, you move your car 6 inches and it covers the mark.
Oh, yes, I know the drill.
It's kind of, unless we go to a GPS-based thing, which costs a lot of money, we looked at it, side of the tire is what you get. If it aggravates you, you can wipe it off.
But what if you go from
It doesn't last, and they mark them in the same spot. So if it's like, say they mark the bottom quadrant, and it's now on the top left, that's not.
You'll represent me, of course, in front of our recently re-elected judge.
It's not a foolproof system.
They're on their game, though.
They used to mark the tread.
Yes, and
That's
as he
what I
says, people
remember.
would...
And now people move their
Yeah,
car.
but if you mark the top of the tread, you couldn't back up.
All the people in the real estate
Can't do that.
offices would run out and move their cars, right? And so I figured this is how they were getting around it, but then I said to myself, what the hell did you get a
We weren't
ticket
marking the
2 days
side
later?
because that aggravates people.
What?
We weren't marking the sides because it aggravates people, and then we were marking the tread and they'd move their car.
Yeah.
So you can't really win.
No, you will never
What
win.
if you're on Main Street and you go over, what if you're on Hampton Road and you go over to Main Street and park there? You're saying it's marked, it's put in a certain spot on the outside,
Oh,
and it has
just-
to be in the
it's-
same spot?
The back tire, the outside of it, and then they put a little strip in there, a foot long. But it just struck me, obviously, the odds are that if you did come back a second time, it might be in a different spot. But it's also, there's about a 25% chance it might get you a ticket that you didn't earn.
It's not likely.
Okay.
We used to have different colors, too, for different hours. When we used to, in your era as mayor, when it was hourly time parking instead of 2 hours. So you'd have different colors.
I noticed that, now that you're here, and I have a question, I noticed that there's 2 crossing guards at, by 75 Main.
No, there's one crossing guard and one rover who gets U-turn tickets right there.
That was my question. That was my next question.
That's the most likely spot for U-turn.
Happens all the time.
And he can write U-turn tickets?
We have to wait for the person we have them not confrontational, so we wait for the people to walk away, and then
Can they give a ticket for that kind of a violation?
they can only write, it's a parking ticket. They can't demand ID, they
I
can't
thought you were
stop.
talking about a U-turn.
It is. It's still a village code ticket.
It's just a parking ticket?
Yeah.
Really?
Police officer can stop you. The traffic control officers are civilians, just like you guys. They can't make.
But if there's a
people
police
do it.
officer there, not that I'm asking for that, but if there was a police officer there, how much would that fine be?
If he wrote the vehicle and traffic ticket, probably more. But they'll generally write the village code ticket as well, because to be honest with you, if we write the village code ticket, the village gets most of the money. If he writes a vehicle and traffic ticket, the state gets most of the money.
Right.
Well, they got me. I got a ticket on Monday, 12 minutes over a 2-hour period, so they were watching. I got the chalk mark and I got my ticket.
Good girl.
I paid it.
See, we don't mess around with nobody out here, you know? 2 hours.
Anybody need some Kleenex?
Equally applied.
Trust me, I've had a number of them, too.
I bet you do. We should have a little spray bottle, you know?
Hairspray. Couple of comments I have. The swearing in is on
July the 2nd.
second.
Yeah, because the 4th of July is Wednesday, so the first Monday of July is the organizational meeting at
And it's at 4 o'clock?
4:15
4:15?
on the village steps, I believe.
4:15?
At 4 o'clock, everyone will rally.
So, you know, I would ask everybody to come out and support these two. It's always nice when you stand up there and get sworn in that there's a crowd standing around, and they both do such a great job, and they both work so hard. They certainly deserve your support without a doubt. And then right after the swearing in, if you'd like to attend, we have the organizational meeting.
Right after it.
Yep, which usually goes pretty quickly, and it's worth sitting through. Then, of course, we got the 4th of July parade right after that. What an exciting parade. It's really, I would stress everybody to come out and see it, you know. I can remember, and I think I told the story the other day, years ago, many years ago, actually. I was in college in Colorado, and 4th of July came along, and I went, oh, no. I go, you know, I really miss that parade. And there's not a lot of communities that have a parade as great as ours. And I remember at the time I was in a small town called Gunnison, Colorado, and I drove all the way to Durango because I saw them had an advertisement about a 4th of July parade. And let me tell you, it was nothing. It was a total disappointment.
Bunch of cowboys.
So, you know, this parade is really a lot of fun.
Leave your Mylar balloon behind, however.
Well,
Yeah, right, exactly.
You might wanna leave
That's right,
that
that's
behind.
right. That's the
Maybe
biggest on the line, right?
we'll chase down the guys peddling those Mylar balloons.
Can we do that, Chief?
Michael?
That's a question.
Stay one
Okay.
more.
We need to do that.
Just one more thing. I would like to thank the McFarlands and the Grievens for staying all this time, and maybe I'd be willing to donate my fire truck boat to either one of you.
And the McLaughlins.
There's a good poster in there. So, yeah, don't miss the 4th of July parade and the playground. You know, that is really nice in there, and the walkway through it. And we did so much with that because we got the playground. We're finishing up the men's restrooms. And for those who missed it, that's all a advanced system that's in there. It's all an IA system, and it's one of the first around. And it really was the impetus, I think, for they're trying to get the IA system on 9 Main Street, is it? Yep. Which those kind of advances and movements forward are always great to see. You know, it's always nice to go forward and not back up all the time. And certainly Lake Agawam needs all the help that we can give her, and we're certainly trying. With that said, second public comment?
I'm sorry, can I say one thing,
Sure.
Mayor? I just also would just like to announce the passing of a community member last week, Reverend Marvin Dozier.
All right, yes, absolutely. I forgot.
An
Thank you.
extremely influential member of our community, extremely impactful. His entire family was and still is impactful with the SYA. So a lot of things that this gentleman and his family engaged in the community, both on the South Fork and the North Fork and all around. So again, obviously, regrets and condolences to the family, to his immediate family, and of course his church family. And thank you for his service that he provided to the village, and obviously what his family continues to do. So.
Actually, thank you for his services he provided to the entire East End. Because
very, very impactful.
he covered both forks. Any additional comments? With none, then I make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters involving village employees.
Second.
Oh, second.